Hello, I'm Professor Lieu. Welcome to our live stream. I'm joined today by art prof teaching artist Kat Huang. And today we are doing an artist and website Instagram critique. If you guys would like to grow as an artist and you can't afford an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof: critiques, tutorials, and professional development. Today we have a website that we're going to be critiquing by Dara Hannon, and we also have an Instagram by Answer that we will be reviewing as well. What we're going to do is get started with just a cold read of the front page of Dara's website, and then we'll share a little bit more about Dara's intent with their website. So Kat, what's your first impression on Dara's front page?
Well, I was excited to see this because I see Dara often in Art Prof and also in the Discord. But my very first impression of this website is that I'm not quite sure what Dara does in general. I see immediately a photo of Dara and a wall of text. And normally when I see websites like this, I just don't read. I know that's sad to say, but I usually don't read when there's a wall of text. So I'm not quite sure what Dara does.
That's actually not you, Kat. That's the whole world. People have no patience for reading beyond literally 2 lines of text online. So that's a general rule for websites, that you just really want to minimize text so that there's the bare minimum. So in Dara's statement, Dara explains that they're making the website for potential employers to show their projects and to attract freelance clients, and that their target audience is art directors. And I guess Dara also had some particular questions like about graphic design projects. How is the text writing? Too much or too little? So let's move, we'll come back to the front page in a little bit, but let's just tackle the graphic design section. And Kat, can you tell me, just looking at the page, do you think this is too much text, too little? What's your first impression?
I 100% think it's too much text, because when I'm looking for graphic design, I'm looking for graphic design. I'm not looking for text, essentially. And I saw that the graphic design is only visible when you scroll down. And normally people don't like scrolling. I mean, just people don't like reading, people don't like scrolling, people don't like taking that extra step. So getting your information and your visuals out there as soon as possible, immediately, is going to benefit you as a visual artist.
What Kat said about scrolling is really true. You guys, if you want to be horrified by the average person's amount of patience on the internet, you should do something called usability testing, which is basically where you sit somebody down and you have them navigate the website and you have them say out loud to you what they're thinking as they go through the website. And I did this for artprof.org. And Kat, I could not believe the stuff that people said. They're like, what? I have to click? I'm like, it's one click. They're like, I don't want to click. So unfortunately, it's like, that's really what you guys are up against with these websites, is people just having no patience and feeling that, oh my gosh, that one click is just too much, right?
Right. I was actually talking to an art director once, and she was doing basically what you just described, a usability test of someone else's portfolio website. And she said, I have to click 3 times to actually see the art I want to see. I'm not going to even consider this artist. And that is absolutely no reflection on the artist's work itself. Like, the art was good, but presenting the art was such a completely different set of skills that really requires a lot of practice and also advice from other people, which is why we're having this critique now.
Well, it's so interesting, Kat, because a lot of us think, oh, we're visual people, we're making a website, which is visual, and Instagram, which is visual. But honestly, building an effective website and Instagram, they're totally separate skills. They have nothing to do with your ability as an artist. And a lot of artists don't have the skills to be able to do that. By the way, just want to tell you guys that Dara is live with us here in the chat, which is wonderful. And Dara's saying it all shows up on one page on my browser. So that's another thing I think somebody mentioned earlier. Yeah, Trent is saying, have you checked the site on mobile devices? That is very important these days. So Kat, what do you do with that? Because some people might look at it on their phone, on their laptop. Maybe their laptop is a funky resolution. What do you do with all those different versions?
Well, obviously you cannot accommodate for every single device in the world. So I would just stick to like 2 or maybe 3 main platforms. So the first one I can think of is obviously your laptop, and maybe just like a general setup like Mac. Like a lot of people have Mac laptops, right? How would that look on the Mac on Chrome and or Safari browser, right? And also I would look at how your website looks like on your phone, on mobile, because a lot of art directors, they actually just like scroll on their phones to find artists. So you actually do have to have it be very presentable on your phone as well.
Soyton Lee says, I don't mind text, but the visuals for an artist need to be out front. All right, so let's go back actually to the front page of Dara's. And my recommendation, Dara, for your front page, the photo of you, I would put that on your about page, because really you want the work to be like front and center, like the very first thing. So for example, Kat, this is Julie Ben-Bassett's website. She's been here at Art Prof on a bunch of streams. How do you think having the artwork like right there helps you understand the artist?
Well, having the artwork right there makes me understand she's definitely an illustrator, and also that she can animate. And I also get a sense of what kind of style of illustration that she makes. I mean, if I were to look at her website, I wouldn't think, oh, you're a jewelry designer. Like, there's no way I'm going to make that association.
Yeah, or if we go to Song Kang's website, Song has also been a guest artist here at Art Prof. Immediately, just this spread of images. I know, okay, she works in pen and ink. There's a lot of images of nature. It's like the images will speak for you. Now, that said, though, it is very helpful. Like this is Annalise, who's also been a guest artist. Having text here that says art, jewelry, and metalwork, that just re-emphasizes that. So I would say, Dara, if you want to really focus on graphic design and illustration, you should have that front and center. Maybe even have something under your name. Like some people will write Dara Hannon, illustrator and graphic designer, but you want that text very visible. Mm-hmm. Now, Kat, what about this contact area? What would you say about this?
I would say it's hard to find because, again, I have to like kind of scroll down and also search throughout the page to find it. So, of course, I'm going to read some of the text. So I'm going to read the big list and I'm wondering, where's the contact? And I see, oh, it's in another row. Usually when I want to find contact, I just go to the about page because usually it's there. Right.
But there's no about page.
Yeah, there's
so
no.
What do I do? Yeah, so I would say on every website, you definitely want to have a contact page, because like if I'm an art director and I see your work, Dara, and I'm like, oh, I really like your work, I want to hire you. And let's say I'm one of those lazy people and I don't scroll down and I go here and I say, wait a minute, there's no contact page. How do I contact them? It's like that one little thing can be a barrier between somebody hiring you or not, because they just will give up. Like, have you ever given up on websites, Kat, where you just can't find it? Like,
oh my gosh. Yes, I have. And honestly, it's not really a case of laziness. It's the case of like, there's so much out there. There are hundreds, thousands of artists. I have to look through thousands of websites. And if I can't find your artwork immediately, then I'm going to find another website where I can find the artwork immediately. It's not a case of laziness. It's literally just, I have to be able to find something as quick as possible with the huge amount of content out there.
Dara is saying on my browser, the menu is static on the left side. What browser are you looking at it on? I'm looking at it on Chrome. It could be, Dara, that I have it maximized. So let me make it smaller. There we go. Okay, so if I make it smaller, that does happen. But the thing is, it's still not easy to find. It's light gray, it's at the bottom, and it's not linked. Like, I think that if you guys want to have your email there, you should have it so that when somebody clicks on your email, it just pops open in email browser. And you can do that in the code or whatever website platform you're using. So definitely add a contact page where you have all that information linked in. Now, what is graphic
Coordinator?
W315 is asking. Let's see what that says.
Coordination? Ah.
Okay. So what would you say to do with this page, Kat? Do you think cut back on the text?
Absolutely would cut back on the text. I mean, I'm not against text. I mean, I use text too, but I really need it to be like small and to the point and really situate the visuals. So for instance, oh, I did a mural. I painted a mural, right? And I have photos of my mural. I have my artwork. Cool, cool. Now, where is the mural and how large is it? I mean, I would like to put those dimensions in text, like situate the artwork and also explain a little bit more. But when it comes to you being an artist, most of what you have to say is through visuals. So a huge wall of text is not necessary. Just let your visuals speak for you.
I would say in general with a website, less is more. For sure. In fact, whenever I do website critiques, and sometimes I review websites when I do lectures, I don't think I've ever told an artist, you need more text. I think every single time I'm telling them, cut back, cut back. And another thing you can do too is instead of putting the text at the top, flip it around so these thumbnails are at the top and then you can add the text at the bottom because again, like you don't know where they're looking at your website. So if you put the images at the top, it 100% ensures that, oh yes, they are definitely going to see those visuals. And then the people who like want to read more, it's there, but it's not the first thing that you take a look at.
I want to point out this comment by Matt Walter. Nice job using consistent punctuation in your bulleted lists. Shows attention to detail. And yes, I do agree. Even of these like small details, like even on a visual arts website, you do need to pay attention to these little details in the text, in the designs, in the icons, in the setup, and to literally everything, which is why Dara, I want you to understand that making a website's really hard. And I think you've done a wonderful job so far to get started because a lot of people actually just don't take that leap. And I see, Dara, that you have. And that's something I do want to point out.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about making an artist's website and how I'm going to do it. But the number of people that actually follow through and do all the work, and I mean, I think a lot of people, when they're on websites, they just have no idea how much work it is. So I would just say, Dara, good for you for the amount of work that you put into this, because it looks easy just visiting a website, but it's like getting all the photos and formatting everything and having all the information. I think it's just now a matter of cutting back in terms of what's really necessary. Like I really like this photo because you can see the graphic design like literally in print. Oftentimes with graphic design, I see people, they just show the design, but you don't actually get to see the real brochure or the real program or something like that. So this is a really nice photo, I think.
I totally agree. Actually, I was also given similar advice by another art director when he was looking at my site. He saw my comics and he saw my zines. And you would think, oh, you're an artist, so you should just like have art. No, he actually told me to have the art printed and like show it in situation, show people reading it, show people handling it, the materiality of the object. So I think, Dara, that this was a really, really good photo. This is a really good documentation of your graphic design work in work.
Dara saying, thanks. I was a history major by training and write like it. That's awesome. I mean, let me tell you, Kat, I'm sorry, but a lot of artists, a lot of us don't write very well. It's just, again, another skill. Like writing is not the same skill as being an artist. And then another thing, Dara, that I want to point out that I like about this page, it's very clear. Like you have Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania, so I know exactly who the client is. You got a nice big photo that shows the graphic design, and the text is here, but it's next to the photo. So if I'm one of those lazy people and I don't want to read the text, it's fine. I just won't read it, but I have the photo there. And so you're giving people the option of reading without it getting in the way of them enjoying the photo.
Ooh, this is a comment from Dara about the graphic coordinator coordination section. I did not do any of the designs under the graphic coordination section. Okay, so this is why you need the usability test for your website. Whenever we go to these websites and we assume you're a visual artist, we're going to also assume that this is all your work. And sometimes that's not the case. Like a lot of art directors I know have a section that is not their work, but they art directed the images, they art directed the graphic design. But you have to be very clear about that. Like you have to maybe credit the actual artist in your text and also highlight that you were a director, you were a coordinator in this event, not the designer.
Oh, so this is stuff you coordinated and other artists made it? Is that correct?
Mm.
Because I thought this was your graphic design, but it's under. Okay, you have to be more clear about that because I just assumed going to the image of the railroad, I just assumed you designed those posters, but I think it sounds like you didn't. Okay, so you have to have, like Kat said, really clear wording about who did what. Like you can write, like I guess you wrote exhibit designer, but you could write like graphic coordinator Dara Hannon, so that way it's a little bit more clear. I mean, it might seem redundant, but that's a problem if people mistake it for your own work.
I think immediately I was thinking, oh, Dara is a graphic designer because that was one of the first bullet points she listed. So I just immediately assumed that Dara designed everything. But you know, you can also be other things like an art director or a graphic coordinator. I think what's tricky here is that graphic coordinator is not a very well used term. At least I have not heard it used that much. I think maybe like exhibition designer or something like that. Like I understand that a little bit better. But again, I don't really know the details of the graphic coordinator role. So Dara, I would recommend that you like think a little bit more about that. Like explain it to stupid people like me, basically.
Well, you can't make any assumptions about people that visit your website. Like when I designed artprof.org, I was like, oh yeah, nobody got, like I had people who were so lost they couldn't even get off the front page. And I thought I was making things so easy. So you have to make it really clear. Let's take a brief glance at the illustration page. I just clicked on one of the sections, which is major arcana. And so these are thumbnails. Oh, why do they keep moving?
Oh,
All
I
right.
think it's like scrolling through the many illustrations that Dara has.
You might want to make the thumbnails static so they're not moving. It's sort of like, you know, when you go to a website and the slideshow just plays and you're like, no, stop, come back. It's like a control thing, maybe because I'm a control freak, but I feel like that might be a little bit easier to do. What do you think, Kat?
I agree. I think it wouldn't hurt to just like have all of these illustrations in a row, or at least just like a gallery section where you can just see them all pretty immediately. I don't think that would hurt. I would also think that you want to see the illustration first because when we land on major arcana, when we click on it immediately, I think the main focus is the text. The image seems like a supporting role. It does not seem like the main object when it should be.
Also, here it says the first sketches in ballpoint pen, and then I'm going to assume these are the finished pieces. And I know, Dara, one of the questions that you had was that you have a few projects that are, quote, really messy, drawn out in research and development. How much of that should be included? I would say on your website, you don't want to show all that sketch stuff. I think on your Instagram, you can show that. But I think about your website, it's like super curated. It's like your retrospective museum show. Like it really should be very, very polished work. I don't know. Maybe you disagree, Kat? What do you think?
I agree because if I want to know more about you, I will take the extra step to go to your Instagram or go to your blog if you use a blog and actually read more about your work and also see the behind the scenes sketches. Normally, I don't put that kind of thing on my website. I try not to make it so like I have a lot of content. I want to show the best of the content on my website.
And let me just see what this navigation at the bottom does. Okay, so this takes me to the digital portraits section. Yeah, so I think these individual projects, Major Arcana, Frisbee, and digital portraits, I don't think they need their own pages. I feel like if you can get people to click less, it makes a really big difference. And actually, this is a good comment from Soyton Lee, who says every page should have a similar design. What do you think about that, Kat?
I agree, because it's just so much easier to navigate. I don't have to like guess again with every new page I come upon.
All right, and I just want to briefly click on blog and see what's going on here. Okay, so hard hat area warning and digital collage time. What do you think about blogs, Kat? Because blogs were like hot 20 years ago. And I guess people still do them if they're like hardcore writers, but I feel like with artists, it's a little bit out of style right now. What do you think?
I think it honestly depends on the kind of illustrator you are, because I have a professor who is doing a whole series about his ancestry. Clara, you might know who I'm talking about.
Right,
And he
right.
has a blog, and he writes a lot on that blog about every single piece of research he's found, every step in his process. I think the blog format was very suitable for him. But say other people might not like it. Other people might prefer Instagram. So I think it just sort of depends on what kind of artist you are. But if you're looking to do something like hip and modern, I don't think blogs are the way to go, to be honest. But they're still a very useful tool of documentation and, I don't know, of writing in general.
I mean, my feeling about a blog is that it can definitely work, and it's a good place to put long format writing, because especially on Instagram, that's not really a good fit. But the thing is, this is something I always do, and you can tell me if you do this too, Kat. Whenever I look at a blog, I go back and I see how often it's updated and when the latest posts are. So this post is all the way in September. This one's in July. And so what I'm seeing here is a blog that doesn't get updated that often, which makes me not want to check it as much. I don't know. Do you do that?
I agree. I think that timestamp for blogs is especially important. And I think because of that, a lot of people don't have blogs for that reason, because having to groom your blog, having to update it often is already such a huge task when you already have an enormous task of designing your own website, on the other hand, right? So I don't know, Dara, like you can keep your blog. That's fine. I mean, I love reading through people's blogs. They put a lot of their thoughts, their process, and their writings in there. But I would try to focus on one part of your website to focus on, like maybe not focus on the blog right now.
Or you can cheat and just take all the dates off. Nobody will know the difference about when you wrote it, and they'll just read it. I mean, it's strange. Like sometimes you think having more information is better, but sometimes that timestamp actually makes it a little bit more obvious when something's older. And if you take out that date, sometimes that's helpful. So W315 says, I could see an action shot of you collaborating with colleagues, and we see sketches and sticky notes. If you do work that way, shows you in a team setting. That's a great idea. If you have it, I mean, it's okay if you don't, but that's another way to like visually communicate, hey, I'm a coordinator and I've worked with all these other artists. That would be a really good way to go about doing that. Okay, let's move on, and we're going to look at AMSR's Instagram. So before I tell you guys what AMSR is aiming for, Kat, just do a cold read on the Instagram, just this top section. We're not even going to look at the posts. We will get to them, but just the profile section.
Okay. I think immediately, I think this person is a manga artist, or at least an artist who draws in like the Japanese manga style. And they're a comics artist, but I'm not quite sure what kind of comics this person makes. I'm assuming it's manga because of the icon. But there are a lot of genres of comics out there. Like there's nonfiction, there's fiction, there's superhero comics, there are, I don't know, coming of age comics. And I'm not really getting what genre comics AMSR makes. I see all these titles and I'm like, okay, cool. And I see a link tree. So I'm assuming if I click on the link tree, I will be able to read AMSR's comics.
Okay, so let's just open all these really briefly just to take a quick glance. And by the way, Kat and I disagree on this. I don't really like the link trees. Kat, you said you're cool with them. I'm curious, what do people think in the chat? And by the way, nothing Kat and I say is the way. It's just our opinion, and people view social media in very different ways. But we're basing our experience off of professional artists' Instagrams and websites that we've seen in the past that were effective. But again, there's no correct thing to this. So definitely take everything we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I want to bring up this comment by John Murph. I never thought people looked at Instagram for professional reasons. Again, take everything we say with a grain of salt because we're just individuals in this massive industry of art. But we have a lot of professional experience. And I'm saying, as an art director, Instagram was one of the main ways I found artists because so many people are on there. And Instagram, Behance, and Twitter were the three platforms I use to find artists all the time.
Yeah, so if I just look at these briefly, this doesn't seem like an active page. I don't really see anything that's recent. So I would say you don't need that. And this is Tide Peak Project, which says written, designed by Amser. Okay, so I'm going to assume this is the collaborative project that maybe they were referring to. And this is their Twitter. Okay. You might want this to go to the profile. Well, this is my profile, but Amser's profile on Twitter might be a better place to link to. We have Amino. I haven't used Amino. You ever use Amino?
I don't know what Amino is.
Oh, and by the way, Amser is here live with us in the chat. That's wonderful. We love it when the artist is here live because then you can help us answer some of our questions. So Amser says, I wouldn't say manga. It's hard to quite say. It's some inspiration from manga, but I think it's becoming something else entirely. Graphic novel in general is a better term to describe my work. Okay, cool. So thanks for clearing that up. And Kat, what was it that made you think it was manga?
Immediately it's because of the icon, because I've read manga. I've also read not manga. And this icon definitely looks like manga to me.
And I'm curious to know who here in the chat likes it better when it's an actual photo of the artist versus an artwork. And this is really a taste thing. It really depends on the person. Kat, what about you? Do you mind when it's an artwork as opposed to a photo of a person?
I think it has to be the artwork because when I'm looking for artists on Instagram and I see, basically I go to an artist I follow and I look at which artists they follow. And usually that list is just a bunch of icons. And immediately I'm just like judging by the icon. Like, this is a good fit art style wise. This is not a good fit art style wise. If I just see a photo, that doesn't tell me anything about your artwork.
See, that's funny. I'm the opposite. Like, I like seeing that there's a person behind the artwork. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But sometimes I look at the artwork. I'm like, who is this? So I don't know. That's where you and I have a different opinion. Okay, so we'll go back to Amser's profile. So let's go to here. So they're writing, I work on current upcoming comics like Savage Bleak, Mobius, Tide Peak, etc. My goal is to entertain, link to my other socials. Okay, so my feeling about the profile sentence is that it's really important. This is the one sentence you have to sum yourself up for people, because I do think that when somebody finds a new artist, they do read that. Do you, Kat?
Oh yeah, I absolutely do read it.
So for example, when you write, I'm an artist writer, it's pretty vague. Artist is very broad, so is writer. And when you write comics like Savage Bleak, Tide Peak, etc., if I don't know what Savage Bleak is, then I don't know what Savage Bleak is. I don't know if it's manga. I don't know if it's a one-panel cartoon. So sometimes it's helpful to write something about the type of media that you work in. And I think my goal to entertain is not necessary. What do you think, Kat?
I mean, I feel like every entertainer's goal is to entertain, right? I feel like every artist's goal is to just like show art. So I think you could do without that part. You could just delete it.
I also think this is not necessarily linked to my other socials because I think most people know that there's one link on Instagram. And if you see Linktree, most people know that takes you to the socials. So what I would just say is that profile sentence, it's really precious real estate. And so you have to like make sure every word in there really is applicable. I think that would be very helpful. So Amster says, I was actually thinking about changing the icon to something of my own design. I would, don't you think, Kat?
Oh my gosh, yes, I would. I would not put someone else's artwork in your icon.
Yeah, that could definitely be an issue down the line. Okay, so let's go down and look at some of the posts. So let's just start with the most recent one. And this one, let's see what the date is. Okay, so 6 days ago. Okay, so that's recent enough for us to not feel that this is a dusty old Instagram. So Kat, what's your first impression just looking at this chunk of text with this image?
Immediately, I think the artwork in the Instagram has no correlation with the icon. So I feel like the icon has deceived me a bit. And okay, that's an interesting image. I feel like this person definitely works in traditional media, and this is an illustration of sort. Now, as for the description of the artwork, I would not take the time to read all of that, especially since it's so long and it has a lot of hashtags at the bottom and also just adding different people. What I usually see artists do actually is they post the description, right? They have no hashtags or anything, but then they post a hashtag and the linking to other people in a comment rather than in the description so that people can focus on the description and not be distracted by the hashtags.
I mean, my feeling about Instagram captions, some people, if they already have a very big following, people will read whatever they write. You know, it's like you're Lady Gaga, you can write anything. Like people will read it because you're Lady Gaga, right? But I think your average artist who doesn't have 56 million followers, people aren't going to bother to read beyond like maybe that much. Again, it's similar to Dara's website where we were like, listen, you're a really good writer, but people just have no patience for that online, unfortunately. And I would also say, I think it's strange that there's so many artists tagged here. Answer, if you can tell us why there's so many people tagged, I feel like that verges on looking like spam, like you're spamming all these other people. What do you think, Kat?
Oh yeah, it kind of reminds me of those ads like, check out this ad for free Ray-Ban sunglasses. And you just like tag a bunch of people. I mean, I've seen a lot of those posts on Instagram and also Facebook, and I automatically think that they're spam.
Yeah. So I just would avoid that because I've had people tag me in random stuff. And unless I've had an interaction with them, say on Discord or somewhere else, I ignore it.
I want to point out this comment by Soy Tinley. Considering this is as much about the story as the art, maybe the text here is appropriate. And I half agree with that. But having seen some of the other posts that Amster has posted, a lot of the captions don't really seem to relate to the story, but rather just like Amster's state of mind at that moment. But also, if you do have a story that is necessary to be in text with the image, usually people post the text as the image. You know, there's a reason why people do that and not put it in the description. You know why? Because people don't usually read descriptions, but they will probably read an image. And another layer to this is maybe Instagram is just the introduction to the story. Maybe the Instagram can lead you to maybe a webtoon where you can actually take your time to read through the comic. And speaking of which, for Amster, I know that Amster has listed a lot of titles like Mobius and Savage Bleak and Tide Peak, but I don't know where to read them. Like, I wish I could immediately see where I can read these titles because I assume they were in the link tree, but apparently they're not in the link tree. Now, I know for the Tide Peak project, Amster has the account linked to several of their posts involving Tide Peak. Exactly that one. But it's so hard to find because I have to look through every single post to find Tide Peak, the account.
Yeah, so you probably want to have, I don't know, Amster, if you have an artist website similar to what we looked at for Dara, but that might be a place to consolidate things. I mean, one of the reasons I don't like the link tree personally is I think if you have a good website, you shouldn't have to send them Linktree. They should just go to your website and find everything from there. That's my personal opinion, but I would keep that in mind. And then the other thought I have about captions, and as a comics artist, you can speak more about this, Kat. I think if it's about comics and storytelling, we shouldn't need the caption to explain everything, right? Or am I wrong?
I agree. I feel like comics text is part of the art, so it should belong in the post, not in the description.
So Amster is saying, mostly my talented comics, graphic novel art friends. I'll try to keep the ads out of the post from now on. I mean, I would just say with your personal friends, if they're following you, then you probably don't need to do that. Or you might want to send them a DM, just because from like a public facing point of view, it can look like spam. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. We have also another question here from John Murph, who says, would it be a good idea to post a picture of yourself on Instagram a few times, or is that for Facebook? Well, what do you think? Because if we scroll down, I don't see a picture of the artist, but do you think that's a problem, Kat, or does it not matter?
Not at all. Like, I'm sure you can post pictures of yourself too. I mean, this is your real estate. This is your domain. You can show what you're comfortable showing. And sometimes it's really nice to see a photo of the artist. That being said, you don't have to. If you don't want to post a photo of yourself, that's fine too. Just have your art speak for itself as well.
Let's see. Amster says for the comic Savage Bleak, it's already posted with 35 pages within the profile in separate posts. Okay, I'm assuming you mean Instagram posts. I mean, maybe it needs to be in a place where it's really easy to read, because the thing about Instagram is that it's totally linear. And so it's hard for people to like go back to old posts and know where to begin. That's why Instagram is problematic in a way that a website is not. Like if you put the comic on a website, then I can just see the whole layout, the entire comic. Is that what you would recommend, Kat?
Yeah, I agree. And as for posting, answer to you, as for posting Savage Bleak entirely on Instagram, I don't think Instagram's the right platform for your comic, because I actually did read some of it and it felt like it should have been maybe on Webtoons or maybe on your website or something, because it was really hard to navigate. First of all, I have to scroll all the way back to find the very first page. When I click on that post, I have to click right to read the pages. And then I have to click left to go to the next post. And then I have to click right to read the next pages. It's just not user friendly in this form.
And that's just an Instagram issue, okay? That's not because your comic isn't good. It's just because Instagram is not really formatted for that type of reading. It's just confusing because of the way the platform is set up. Now, one thing that I think is a little bit confusing is if I go from here to here, okay, these look stylistically pretty related, but then this one looks really different. And then if I go here, this looks like a totally different style. So I guess I'm just wondering, Amster, because I know you're doing some collaborative comics, are some of the images by other artists that you're collaborating with, or are all three of these images yours? I guess I'm just confused about that. And that's something you don't want people to be confused about. Like, you want to know, like, whose work is this? Especially with collaboration, it gets confusing, don't you think?
Yeah, my gosh. I think when it comes to your personal Instagram, just post your work. Just do that. Don't confuse people.
Well, also, especially since we saw from the link tree that you guys do have an Instagram for Tide Peak, right? And so here we know, okay, these are all these people who are collaborating. And so here's where we expect to see a blend of different artists. Whereas this is your personal Instagram, it probably should be limited to just your work. I mean, I could be totally wrong in terms of how I'm reading this, but I do know that just looking at the website, I am confused about exactly what's going on. Now, how about some of the photographs, Kat? Do you have any comments about the photos? Because photos are everything on Instagram.
Right. I'm not a big fan of how this photo turned out, because it just seems kind of like a low quality photo of your artwork. Now, some people do take these kind of photos, but they usually have like a pen or a pencil or their hand or something to show, oh, this is the object, not just the drawing, the image. This is the object, right? But I would say for the Savage Bleak posts that Amser did, like those are pretty good quality images. Those, not that one. Like stuff like this seems more like a scan rather than a photo. So I think this is a better quality image rather than the other, sketchbook photos we saw.
Yeah, I think the thing is with your photography, it's totally fine to show like the messy studio floor. Actually, people really like that. I don't know why. It's just more intimate, I suppose. But I think it's like you either have to do it like the Savage Bleak pictures, which are very much the artwork and nothing else, or it has to be like blatantly work in progress, like your hand on it, the pencils, the pencil shavings. I think with a post like this one and like this one, where it's like not quite one extreme or the other, it can end up looking a little bit awkward. So I might consider doing something like that. And Amser is replying here, no, the images are all mine. The colored one was a contest I was in. I actually am planning to archive it. I would, because I feel like this image here is just so out of place compared to the other stuff you have. I mean, this is something that might be fine as an Instagram story. What do you think, Kat?
Yeah, I think as a story that'd be good. Or if you have a Finsta, as people call it, maybe you can post it there.
Yeah. So your Instagram stories, I think you think about them as like, that's for your hardcore fans. That's like where you can just dump whatever. And it's like sort of fun for a lot of people that really enjoy your work.
Erica is asking, should we aim for artwork posted to our Instagram to be stylistically the same so as to avoid whiplash? What are your thoughts on that, Clara?
I think it really depends on what your goals are. Because actually going back to some of Amser's goals, Amser says, I'd like to get my stories published, grow a large audience who can enjoy my work, maybe have a small bookshelf with my published work in physical form or to see it in a store. Okay. So if that's your goal, is to like get published, yes, you are going to want a consistent style. On the other hand, Amser also says, I also like to try my hand at other work like painting, clay, digital art, etc. I have so many ideas I want to do and so many projects down the line. Your Instagram can be that. It can be, I'm experimenting, I'm trying all these different things, but I think that you have to be very clear on what you're using it for. So for example, Amser, if I were you and I'm like, really want to push my comics, maybe this is my comics Instagram. Maybe I have another Instagram, which is my like experiment Instagram, where I just put whatever. Do you think that would be good, Kat, to split it up into 2 accounts?
I think it would be good to split it up into 2 accounts. And that doesn't mean that you can't post it all into one account. But again, as Clara said, you have to be very clear what your goal is on your Instagram. Like if your goal is, I want to be a comics artist and I want to be published, probably in book form, then you should probably mostly post comics. But you can post a photo of yourself once in a while if you want to. Like no one's preventing you from doing that.
Ripple of Aqua says, how much time would you guys suggest dedicating to posting to social media? I feel so much isn't worth it, while other times I just don't have time. I will tell you, Ripple of Aqua, doing Instagram is a full-time job. I mean, the people I know who have very active, successful Instagrams, they're doing it all the time. It's a crazy amount of work. And that's where we were saying earlier that this has nothing to do with your studio practice. And it really is a whole other thing. It depends on your goals. If you really are like pushing yourself to be published, that is your main goal, you want to do it today, yeah, you're going to have to be on top of it. But Kat, not everybody wants that, right?
Not everyone wants that. And oh my gosh, I feel like I'm not on top of it in terms of social media myself a lot of the times. I mean, I do my best to like look professional on a front, but really, how often am I on social media? I try not to be on it too often, to be honest. And like, it depends from person to person. Like, clearly, I'm not extremely famous on Instagram. And you know what? I'm okay with that. But if you want to be extremely famous on Instagram, you're going to have to put in a lot of time and effort into your social media.
I think a lot of people, they think, oh, well, it's on the phone, tap, tap, I'm done. It's not. I mean, there's one person I know who has a very successful Instagram. I mean, all day they were thinking about posts and taking photos, and it's a huge amount of work to do. So just you have to ask yourself, like, is that my priority? Or maybe I just want to step back and work without all that pressure. Because a lot of people, that really is a huge amount of pressure that isn't always a good thing.
Right.
So, by the way, you guys, we do have these other streams, for example, social media for visual artists. And we also have a stream that talks about how to start an artist website and other Instagram artist critiques and website critiques that you guys can check out that has more information on social media. I would love for you guys to join Kat and I in the Art Prof Discord. We will be hanging out there in a few minutes. If you guys want to keep chatting, I know there are a lot of questions in the chat we didn't have time to get to, so we're happy to answer them there. Subscribe to the Art Prof YouTube so you can continue to grow and develop as an artist. And I want to say a big thank you to our top Patreon supporters. You guys give us the resources that we need to keep Art Prof 100% free and available to everybody. So we greatly appreciate your support. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.